Welcome. Settle into a comfortable position, whether you're lying down or sitting up. If it feels right, gently close your eyes. Take a slow, deep breath in. Feel your chest rise as your lungs fill. Then softly exhale, letting go of any tension you've been holding. Before we continue, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, let me know where you're from and what time you're watching it. Always great to connect with you. Now, take another deep breath in and exhale slowly, releasing any lingering stress. Feel your shoulders relax, your jaw loosen, and the tension in your forehead fade away. With each breath, notice your body growing heavier, sinking deeper into relaxation. Let your mind drift freely, like a leaf floating on a calm, steady stream, carried effortlessly. Simply listen to the sound of my voice and allow yourself to be gently guided. The sweltering heat of July 1976 clung to the Appalachian Mountains like a damp cloth, a suffocating blanket that muted the sounds of the forest. Tom Carver, seeking solace after a bitter divorce, retreated into the dense, endless pines, hoping to find peace in the solitude of nature. He pitched his tent by a babbling creek, the gentle murmur of the water a soothing balm to his frayed nerves. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and violet, Tom lit a crackling fire. The flames danced and flickered, casting warm, inviting shadows across the forest floor. Stars, like tiny pinpricks of light, winked through the dense canopy of branches, creating an illusion of serene isolation. For a brief, fleeting moment, it was perfect, a tranquil escape from the turmoil of his life. Then, the silence descended. It wasn't a gradual fading of nature's symphony, but an abrupt, unnerving cessation, as if a switch had been flipped, plunging the forest into an eerie stillness. The birds, which had been chirping and singing moments before, fell silent, their voices abruptly cut off. A chill, far colder than the night air, crept into Tom's bones. He scanned the surrounding trees, his flashlight beam trembling, cutting through the encroaching darkness. But he saw nothing, only the oppressive blackness, thicker and more profound than it should have been. A twig snapped, the sound echoing through the unnerving silence, too heavy and deliberate to be the sound of a deer. "Hello?" he called out, his voice thin and hesitant, swallowed by the vastness of the forest. No answer came, only a heavy, oppressive silence that pressed down on him, a palpable sense of dread. He was not alone. He felt it in the prickling of his skin, the tightening of his chest, the certainty that unseen eyes were watching him. He doused the fire, plunging his campsite into darkness, and retreated into the relative safety of his tent. But the feeling of being watched intensified, a sense of unseen eyes boring into him, piercing the fabric of his solitude. He peered out, his heart pounding in his ears, and caught a glimpse of it. A silhouette, humanoid but wrong, its limbs too long, its form distorted, standing just beyond the edge of the flashlight's beam. It didn't move, didn't breathe, simply stood there, a silent, watchful presence. Tom clutched his knife, his knuckles white, his heart hammering against his ribs, until the first rays of dawn broke through the trees, and the silhouette was gone. Exhausted and shaken, he packed up his campsite, chalking the encounter up to nerves and the lingering stress of his divorce. But the unease lingered, a persistent shadow that clung to him. He drove miles away, seeking a new campsite, a fresh start, but the pattern repeated. The birds fell silent again. The oppressive stillness descended, and the silhouette returned, closer this time, its head tilted, as if studying him, analyzing him. There were no tracks in the dirt, no sound that betrayed its movements, but the air grew colder, heavier, with an unspoken intent. Tom fled the woods, abandoning his quest for solitude, but the watcher followed. In the sterile, impersonal rooms of motels, he'd wake to find shadows lurking at the window, featureless yet disturbingly familiar, their presence a constant reminder of the unseen watcher. He confided in friends, seeking reassurance, but they laughed it off. attributing his fears to paranoia and stress. Until they camped with him, one of them vanished, leaving behind only a shredded sleeping bag, torn apart as if by a ferocious beast. Tom eventually stopped running, resigned to his fate. He became a gaunt, haunted figure, a recluse who lived on the fringes of society. Locals whispered of him, a man who spent his days by the creek, staring into the trees, as if waiting for something to emerge. The Watcher wasn't a ghost, nor a beast. It was something older, something patient, a predator that didn't kill quickly. It thrived on dread, on the slow, agonizing unraveling of a mind that knew it was prey. The most terrifying aspect of the Watcher was its elusiveness. You would never see it fully, never grasp its true form, but you would feel its presence, always just out of reach. A constant, chilling reminder that you were being watched, hunted, slowly consumed by fear. Let that one settle. Breathe. The rain's still here, steady and calm. Let's move on. The summer of 2023 shimmered with a heat that seemed to warp the very air, a fitting backdrop for the reckless adventure undertaken by four friends: Jake, Mia, Carlos, and Priya. They piled into Jake's beat-up van, its faded paint a testament to countless road trips and youthful escapades. Their destination, the infamous Crestwood Asylum. Crestwood, a relic of a bygone era, stood perched atop a desolate hill overlooking the town, its silhouette a stark, imposing presence against the horizon. Shuttered since the 1980s, it had become a local legend, a whispered tale of forgotten horrors and lingering madness. Its windows, dark and vacant, resembled burned-out eyes, staring out at the world with an unsettling intensity. Driven by a mix of youthful bravado and a thirst for the macabre, the friends ventured into the asylum's decaying grounds. They slipped through a rusted gate, its hinges groaning in protest, ignoring the ominous no trespassing sign that stood as a silent warning. Armed with flashlights and a cheap digital camera, they plunged into the building's cavernous depths, their laughter echoing through the empty halls, a fragile shield against the creeping unease. Inside, the air was thick, with the stench of mildew and a metallic tang that hinted at unspeakable acts. Wheelchairs lay toppled and abandoned, their wheels creaking as if nudged by unseen hands, their silent presence adding to the unsettling atmosphere. "This place is a gold mine," Jake grinned, his voice echoing through the vast space as he panned his camera across the peeling walls. Frantic scratches marred the surfaces, a desperate testament to the suffering endured within those walls. Words like help and they see were scrawled in a chaotic frenzy, their chilling simplicity a stark reminder of the asylum's dark history. The first hour passed in a haze of bravado, the friends' footsteps echoing through the endless halls, their voices bouncing off the decaying walls. But then, a sound pierced the silence, a giggle, high and sharp, darting past them like a spectral whisper. "Who's there?" Mia called out, her voice swallowed by the oppressive darkness. Silence descended, heavy and suffocating, broken only by the rhythmic drip of water from a leaky pipe. They pressed on, drawn deeper into the asylum's labyrinthine interior, their flashlights cutting through the darkness like fragile beacons. They reached the electroshock room, its rusted beds gleaming under their beams, the leather straps dangling like limp, skeletal fingers. Carlos swore he saw a shadow shift in the periphery, mimicking his stance, a fleeting glimpse of something that shouldn't be there. "Quit messing around," he snapped, his voice laced with a nervous edge, though no one stood behind him. The giggles returned, circling them now, joined by a low hum that vibrated in their bones, a chilling resonance that seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves. Priya's flashlight flickered, casting erratic shadows that danced across the room, revealing a figure at the hall's end, tall, impossibly thin, a spectral silhouette that vanished as quickly as it appeared. "We need to go," she whispered, her voice trembling, but the exit signs had vanished, swallowed by the darkness. Panic set in as they fled, their footsteps echoing through the twisting corridors, each turn leading to a dead end. Screams, not their own, erupted from the walls, a cacophony of tormented cries that seemed to emanate from the very fabric of the building. The camera, once a tool of documentation, now captured only static, then fleeting glimpses of faces, warped and distorted, their expressions a chilling tableau of terror. They finally found the van at dawn, its tires slashed, its once vibrant paint now dull and lifeless. The footage on the camera was corrupted, a chaotic jumble of static and distorted images, but for one chilling frame, their own shadows stretched and elongated, their forms twisted and wrong, as if the asylum itself had imprinted its darkness upon them. Crestwood didn't just trap its patients, it kept collecting, drawing in the curious, the reckless, the foolish. Curiosity was the bait, a lure that drew them into its clutches. The terror of Crestwood lay in its insatiable hunger, a place that didn't let its victims leave unchanged, whispering their names long after they had fled, a chilling echo of the madness that lingered within its walls. It was a place where the past refused to stay buried, a place where the shadows held onto their victims forever. Take a moment. Let the rain carry that tension away. Ready for the next? The gas lamps of London, 1890, cast a feeble amber glow, barely piercing the thick, perpetual twilight that clung to the city like a shroud. In a parlor, draped in the somber hues of mourning, Eleanor Grayson, a widow, still cloaked in the heavy fabric of loss, meticulously polished her latest acquisition. It was an antique mirror, its frame a grotesque yet mesmerizing tangle of silver vines, their metallic tendrils twisting and coiling like petrified serpents. She had found it tucked away in the labyrinthine depths of a flea market, a chaotic sprawl of forgotten treasures and whispered histories. The vendor, a hunched figure with eyes that darted and flickered like trapped moths, had spoken of its history in a hushed, almost reverent tone, his words laced with an unsettling urgency. Eleanor, however, saw only the mirror's stark, undeniable beauty, a stark contrast to the dreary monotony of her grieving existence. As dusk settled, casting long, distorted shadows across the parlor walls, Eleanor stood before the mirror, adjusting the delicate lace of her widow's veil. She paused, her gaze lingering on her reflection. A flicker of unease rippled through her. Her reflection had blinked, a slow, deliberate movement that was utterly impossible. A heartbeat later, a second face slid into view, a pallid, spectral visage that seemed to emerge from the very depths of the glass. Its eyes were hollow voids, empty sockets that stared into the abyss, and its mouth was a jagged, crimson slash, a silent scream etched into its flesh. Eleanor stumbled back, her breath catching in her throat, a cold dread seizing her heart. The spectral figure lingered, its lips moving in a silent, grotesque pantomime. "A trick of the light," she whispered, her voice trembling, a desperate attempt to rationalize the impossible. Yet her hands shook violently as she hastily draped a heavy cloth over the mirror, shielding herself from its terrifying gaze. The night descended, bringing with it a chilling symphony of whispers. They seeped through the house, low, guttural murmurs that sounded like voices arguing in a language lost to time. The whispers were a constant, unsettling presence, a spectral chorus that echoed through the empty rooms, filling the silence with a palpable sense of dread. By morning, the cloth lay crumpled on the floor, as if violently thrown aside, revealing the mirror, pristine and undisturbed. Each night brought a new horror, a fresh wave of terror. The spectral faces multiplied, a grotesque gallery of the damned, men, women, and children, their skin peeling, their fingers clawing at the glass from the inside. Desperate to escape their mirrored prison, the whispers intensified, morphing into desperate pleas, then into chilling threats. "Let us out," they hissed, their voices a chilling echo that resonated only within the confines of the room. Eleanor's world began to unravel, her sanity fraying at the edges. Sleep became a distant memory, replaced by a constant state of terror. Her reflection grew gaunt, her eyes hollow, mirroring the spectral figures trapped within the glass. She tried to rid herself of the mirror, to sell it, to smash it, to burn it, but it always returned, unscathed, to its place on the wall, an unyielding sentinel of dread. Her neighbors, once distant, now spoke of strange occurrences emanating from her house. They whispered of chilling screams that pierced the night, of shadowy figures that flitted past her windows, vanishing into the fog-laden streets. A sense of unease settled over the neighborhood, a palpable fear that clung to the air, like the city's ever-present smog. Then, one foggy dawn, a chilling silence descended upon the house. The screams ceased, the whispers faded, and the shadows vanished. Eleanor Grayson's house stood empty, a silent testament to the horrors that had unfolded within its walls. Only the mirror remained, its surface gleaming, its silver vines shimmering in the dim light. A new tenant, oblivious to the house's dark history, moved in, drawn to its Victorian charm and the antique mirror's undeniable beauty. He hung it proudly, admiring its sheen, its intricate frame. But as dusk fell, the mirror's true nature revealed itself once more. The terror of the cursed mirror lay not merely in the spectral figures it displayed, but in the insidious way it invaded the mundane, transforming an ordinary object into a prison for restless souls. It was a violation of the familiar, a corruption of the everyday. The mirror's horror was its proximity. One could not flee from what was already within their home, watching, waiting for a moment of weakness, a lingering gaze that would allow the specters to seep into one's reality. The mirror's curse was a slow, insidious erosion of sanity, a terrifying reminder that the most horrifying terrors often reside within the familiar, lurking in the shadows of our own reflections. It was a silent, persistent threat, a constant reminder that the veil between worlds was thin, and that some doors, once opened, could never be closed. And there we are reading stories, carried to you on the wings of the rain. The night is quiet now, the storm easing into a gentle murmur. I hope these tales have wrapped you in a strange sort of comfort, the kind that lingers between waking and dreaming. The rain will keep falling, soft and steady, long after my voice fades. Let it guide you to sleep, to a place where the shadows are just stories, and the unknown is nothing to fear. Good night, and sweet dreams.